Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks. I'm your host, Nacho, and this week I'm joined by my colleagues,
RJ
and
Lex.
And we are going to be talking about one of the most influential names in watch design, Gerald Genta. And
I thought Cherry Nataf.
No. It's actually Mr. Gerald Genta.
Yeah.
And we are going to be pondering the question: how much Genta is too much Genta? Because obviously we've seen quite a resurgence of his designs, and a lot of brands have been coming to light, bearing the name and claiming that their designs are being brought to life. But we wonder this after we check what's on our wrists. That was very smooth. So Lex, you go first. What is on your wrist today?
It's not a Genta design, by the way. But
really?
But you might mistake it for one. It's a Hamilton khaki below zero titanium automatic 46 millimeter.
Oh wow!
And this is actually the only watch I think that can cope with the Dutch summer right now. So
yeah, that's true.
I wear this
rain,
because it's out of necessity that I wear this. So
that strap is as close as we've come to seeing sunshine in the last week.
Exactly.
So that's
I will cover it.
That's quite nice. Yeah, please, thank you. RJ, how about you? What is on your wrist today?
I'm wearing, I think, one of our own creations in collaboration with Nomos. So it's a Nomos Zurich Weltzeituhr, world timer. It's the Hague edition. So it shows The Hague, and it has this one-eyed panda dial design. And
nice.
One-eyed panda.
yeah.
I like panda cyclops.
Nice. Yeah.
Perfect. Very nice.
Very rare animal.
Yeah, and I'm wearing, this is not a Genta designed watch. It's the Arcan Alterum.
But it's definitely Genta inspired.
It has some of those lines that we've seen in some of Mr. Genta's designs, which is part of the reason why I wore it. Also because I just really like this watch and I enjoy wearing it. So that's also why it's on my wrist today. But yeah, so diving into the topic, shall we begin with a bit of a retrospective... Or
we ask what the cameraman is wearing. What
what's
are you
the
wearing,
cameraman wearing?
Casio.
He's wearing a Casio, which is
that's
Genta
also
adjacent.
Genta-ish.
Yeah, sort of. Oh,
there it comes. There it comes. There it is.
Good catch. There you go. There's the Casio.
Yeah.
That's
Casio, full black.
First generation. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very cool watch.
Impossible to read the time.
GA2100 is the reference.
Yeah. Now you have to throw it back and try not to hit the camera.
Oh, let's not do that.
Okay, perfect. So now that everybody's wrist has been checked in the building, shall we do a little bit of a retrospective? So talking about Gerald Genta, we can go back to the early 50s. I believe one of his first designs that is still well known today is the Universal Genève pole router, which he designed when he was just 23 years old, or so the story goes.
Amazing, yeah.
And from then on, and then here we get into what some people might consider less known territory, or at least for people who are not super familiar with his story and his background. But then he was employed by Omega.
Yeah, he was with Omega, and he was asked, I think, in the late 50s, to help design or refresh a Constellation. Constellation, those pie pen models from those years. And then later on again, he did the C-shaped Constellation. And then he also started for himself. So late 60s, he started his own company as a design company for watch brands. And then later on, he still did work for Omega, also in the 80s with the Seamaster Titan or Seamaster Polaris, as some people the people know it by. But of course, the pole route was very early of him. Then the Constellations, and of course, 72 marks the Royal Oak. Yeah. And a few years later, he came with the Nautilus and the IWC Ingenieur. Sometimes people confuse that the 222 or Overseas was also done by him, but that's not the case. It was done by Jörg Heisek.
Yeah. And the Laureato is also not.
Was also not from him. There are some rumors with Cartier that he did some work for Cartier. Sometimes the crown might give it away, but we're not sure. It's never confirmed. But he did so many watch designs, unbelievable, and also under his own label.
True. Of course.
Some watches.
Well, these Disney watches with the Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse racing, and you had I think Donald Duck or Catherine Duck golfing, and Goofy, and
Yeah, very cool. And then he was involved with Bulgari, right, in the early 2000s, and did some stuff with.
I think he sold his company. Yeah. He sold his a company to Bulgari in 2000, and then in 2003 he founded Gerald Charles.
Oh yeah, which is still very much around today.
Yeah,
it's been
the Gerald Charles is still around today.
Yeah,
and
so
of course the Gerald Genta brand is also still around,
Yeah.
although it's LVMH owned.
Yeah, and I think his widow is protecting it a lot, and she's also involved with a lot of things.
Yeah.
I saw her at when the current IWC engineer was revamped or introduced 2 years ago, I think 1 year ago.
2
years ago. And there was this preview session in London, and then his widow was there as well to explain and to talk about Gerald Genta, and one of our colleagues, Gerard, he's on a picture with him. Perhaps we can
we can put that up.
Put that up,
screen, of course.
And I saw Genta only once during Basel World, and he was wearing a Royal Oak, and that was probably 2009 or 2010.
Oh, that's a year before he died.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him or saw him?
I saw him. I never met him,
No.
unfortunately. No.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So, but now what
He was a bit of a grumpy character. That's what
that's what I heard as well.
Heard.
There are some anecdotes that I won't share, but are kind of funny. But he was very protective and very kind of black and white in his what he liked, what he didn't like. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing that's impossible to deny is the influence of his work. I mean, just looking at that trio, well, even the duo, right? If you look at Royal Oak and Nautilus, it's truly. I mean, those watches, which were perhaps not super popular at the time, right? Because they were rather expensive and they were steel, and I believe that
the Royal Oak had a bit of took a little while, but the Nautilus was actually created because
of the success
of Patek wanting something quite similar, because then it was already a success. And the Ingenieur was, of course, always positioned lower. It never had the horlogerie finish of the AP and the Patek. So. But I also don't think that was the biggest success. I wrote a story about it, and there is actually there's some numbers on how many of those watches of these engineers were actually
they were
sold.
all low numbers.
And it was not that much.
No, right,
not a lot.
No.
It was very. It was also niche.
Yeah,
very niche.
True. But these days, of course, we've seen this big resurgence of mid-century design,
completely,
which has come through in watches like, offerings from Tudor. Obviously, certain watches just have never changed since those times, only very slightly. But of course, the integrated bracelet has, in the last couple of years, was huge, and we saw anything from the Ingenieur returning to something like
exactly. Well, there's the immense success, the continuing success now of the Royal Oak and the Nautilus.
Yeah, but
and then you also see that other brands started benefiting from the fact that those watches were unavailable. So you had the overseas rose, the Laureato kind of rose, and then there was this whole string of new watches. You mentioned the Chapek,
but anything from Chapek down to something like a Tissot PRX.
Yeah, the PRX, of course,
sees
definitely
the success. So that's but in this resurgence, have we reached a point of saturation?
The saturation.
Have we gotten maybe a little bit to the point where we think, let's give it a rest? Obviously, I think one of the latest releases with bearing not the Genta name per se, but the Genta claim was this reissue of the Cradle,
the locomotive. The thing is, I saw the Crater locomotive just before I went on a little IWC museum and manufacture trip, and when I see the locomotive, I'm thinking, okay, there are Genta designs that stand the test of time,
yes,
and there are designs that maybe do not. And with the locomotive, I definitely had the idea, okay. It's so bound to that period. Same to some types of furniture from that era. It worked well then. Maybe was also very niche then. Maybe some things are just don't stand the test of time that well. Yeah. And then I was at IWC, and then I saw the Yacht Club.
Oh,
is it the Yacht Club 2? Or is it
the old yacht club. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by it. As in, and they showed a reference that didn't come on the integrated bracelet, but on a leather strap, and it actually looks way better, I think, than with the integrated bracelet. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, well, please, IWC, bring this back, because very, very subtle and almost understated. Whereas the locomotive is, of course, a design object that also tells time. So I was a little bit, when I saw the locomotive, I thought, yeah, okay, let's stop now. Too much Genta.
Yeah.
And then I saw that one. I thought, yeah, well, there's always room for beauty.
But do you feel the same with the re-editions from Gerald Genta that they produce now or introduce now from LVMH with the Mickey and is it too much? Or
I kind of like the Mickey.
But those we kind of like. But how about this latest? I forget what it was called. Is it the oursin? Very spiky.
Oh, the urchin, the oursin,
that's not for me.
Because I think that was the week that it was a
true.
1 or 2 week
also
period
that one
where we
came
had
out.
the oursin, and we had the locomotive, and it felt a bit like, maybe we're now scratching a bit the boundaries of where.
I think that watch is that is also a watch that belongs in a certain era and doesn't really.
At the same time,
fits in 2024.
we also are seeing this shift for whatever reason, where we see a lot of what we have now kind of very lovingly nicknamed these geezer watches, right? Like the things that have inspired designs like the Toledano and Chan, and we see a lot of people wearing these smaller precious metal Piagets with stone dials, this kind of thing. We see a bit of a resurgence in that, and therefore it kind of takes and also people wearing smaller Cartier models that are a bit more artsy, or even looking at things like the I'm giving myself a lot of work. I see our cameraman just writing down names of watches, and I have to find the pictures that go up, so I'm going to take it easy here. But we see stuff like the AP bamboo also popping up, things like this, where you just we keep our finger on the pulse on social media and everywhere else, and we see the resurgence of these kinds of styles of watches, and you think, okay, I see why the oursin was brought back now and not 5 or 10 years ago. But at the same time, and perhaps we're a little bit fixed in our thinking here, but at the same time, we look at this and think, is this a bit too much? Something like the Mickey watch, that's just fun. It's well
fun,
designed,
but it's also fun at a very high price. Huh?
That's also the thing. It's how expensive can a watch be and still be fun.
Yeah, I think the Mickey was actually done very well.
I like that a lot.
Yeah,
We had that
definitely.
in. It was good. We've also seen Daniel Roth, right? Was that also in part the work of Genta? And we've seen the brand also.
Yeah, well, you had the Gerald Genta brand and the Daniel Roth brand,
and they
both
were
under the Bulgari umbrella.
Right.
And at first they were styled completely separately. You remember the Basel World exhibitions, and later they kind of morphed the two brands together. We'll
throw some pictures up as well for
and
people
then you
to
get
see,
these
of these references.
quite I would say distinct.
Our colleague Gerard, he had the Jeffica in bronze.
Yeah.
That was nice. Genta.
One of the. I think that's actually the first bronze
watches
with the
bronze, I
Jeffica.
think. Yeah.
And they're kind of interesting. I think they're kind of interesting. What I wrote a story about. You can of course now, if you have a big budget, you can go to all these modern brands that do the Genta thing. You can go for a Gerald Charles. You can you look at the Genta catalog that's now under LVMH and the stuff. But if you go back to those days where you had the Jefficas and stuff, and there was a safari. Do you know the safari? There was all kind of very wild, but then somehow but people reacted to that in a very. I would have expected. Okay, look, you can buy the look, you can shop the look for way less, but then I think the audience today who are into that just want the modern stuff, and they don't care about the budget, and they will just go for the now. And
One
that
thing,
old stuff,
one thing about Genta's designs that for the most part that strikes me is that they tend to be very sort of geometric, but also rather clean and minimalistic. Thinking about the Royal Oak, right? Just two hands.
Now then, have another look at the Jeffrica.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I
Man.
wonder
Yeah,
if
that's
that
the
comes
thing.
directly from
Yeah.
his pen, or if that's a little bit like when you look at the Royal Oak going then into the overseas, which of course I know that
Oh,
comes much
God.
more from Emmanuel Gate. But when you look at something like
The
that,
offshore, you mean?
the offshore, yeah, my bad. So that's the thing, that it obviously takes the Genta design as a base and then goes into
Yeah,
into a
then
Genta
completely,
didn't like that.
No, he
No.
did. No,
Okay.
but no.
Well, you
yeah,
said he
but-
was very defensive and
Yeah.
rather
no,
yeah.
and I talked to Manu about
Yeah,
the
we did
way,
too,
and
yeah.
there was also he was a young kid himself when
Yeah.
he designed the offshore, and he got a lot of stick from
Yeah.
there was also quite
Yeah.
he was impressed by that.
Yeah.
But were those Bulgari Roth sort of watches? Were those directly from the pen of Genta, or were
Well,
those?
he okayed it at least.
Right,
So what you could say is that he started with a design, and later on they
Probably had a
also
team,
they
working
also
for him.
kind of entered offshore territory because they were.
Yeah.
Those were not minimalist. That's also the power, I think, of the jumbo,
Yeah.
of the Royal Oak. Is it? Yes, there is a lot of shapes, and there is there's something daring, but there's also something. It's very balanced. It's exciting and it's balanced and it's new and. Hey, and also Rembrandt didn't. Not every am I going to say that not every Rembrandt is a masterpiece? Maybe I should say not every Van Gogh is a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Same applies to Genta, in my opinion.
and it's also applies to car designers and stuff.
Yeah.
Not every Bertone.
What I
is
find
fantastic.
interesting is that in the early 2000s, you had brands like Hublot coming up with the Big Bang,
Yeah.
I think 2004 or something. Then you had Linde Werdelin from
Yeah.
Denmark coming
Yeah.
with a similar kind of design, Linde Werdelin 1, and you had the
But
three-timer and
that was more
two-timer.
offshore.
That was a bit more offshore-based.
offshore,
And
yeah.
Bulkier and bigger.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, and I had a discussion with Jorn Werdelin, one of the founders, and I said, it's a bit Genta-esque, what you're doing. And he said, yeah, but what can you do with like a round watch and a strap? It's a round watch and a strap. So as soon as you go into creating or designing a sports watch, you want to have an integrated bracelet, you're very quickly entering the territory of what Genta and High-Sec did.
Yeah, well, form
And Emmanuel Wright.
form follows function, right?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
in a way, you can only can only take it so far. I mean, can you bring it back out?
Yeah, of
we
course I
see
can.
we see designs also being
I don't
taken.
think this is designed.
I don't know.
It's made.
Well, someone drew that.
And someone put a yellow strap on that.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think that it's, you can see form really. Thank you. I can't
like it?
talk. I can't think when I'm looking at it. No, it's an interesting thing, but again, it's a rather unique looking watch. But you think, right? You can really take design a long way, and that's not necessarily a good thing, right? You can make something that looks very different, but then it makes it distinctive and appealing in its uniqueness, and then you can make something that is just a bit too far down the over design, right? And that's where that line, where that barrier is, where when you cross that line, it's a thing that you can't really, you have to play it by feel, right? It's something that you really can't quantify as much as when you look at it and you go, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this, right? I mean, it's that kind of thing.
I'm also thinking now about the Gerald Charles brand, which is interesting because the latest creations are done by Octavio Garcia.
Yeah.
And
Who worked at AP.
He worked at AP, of course. So he worked with Genta designs before, and now he does again.
Yes.
And that also must be. And you remember also that he had his own brand, Gorilla Watches. I don't know.
That looked
if that's
different.
still,
Okay.
so,
I think it's still alive.
yeah.
Gorilla is still alive.
Yeah. There's a couple of gorillas still alive in Rwanda.
But I think that his own brand has little to do with Genta. But now he worked for AP.
Yeah.
He works now for Gerald Charles. For me,
Must
then
be something.
It must be something, and also because you are always bound to work in this framework set out by
But that's the thing.
Genta
with,
himself.
you have the framework of the
So how much
watch, and then
freedom
you
do
have
you
the
have?
framework
Yeah.
of the of Genta.
Yeah,
But
it's also a challenge.
Of course.
To create something nice within that framework,
and when you exit the framework, there's always going to be some tension, right? Because look at the Code 1159. That was they kept some of the octagonal design, but people's first response was rather mixed. And then you think, well, what happens if, to put it kindly,
but even from AP themselves, they said don't take a picture from the front. That was the assignment we got.
I'm sorry,
during that first introduction.
That's fine to say, but it's a bit. Okay, it's a little bit much, but think
hard
about
to
a
say
Gerald
that.
Charles. A Gerald Charles, as soon as it loses that sort of very distinctive, symmetrical but asymmetrical design, it's a little bit like what would you do? Where do you take it further? Especially if you can't open up the archive and rifle through some papers and go, this will be the next one.
What I also feel with the Gerald Charles watch is that I, in a way, I like it, but you can also see that both the Royal Oak and the Nautilus are
represented,
more balanced. They are more of a timeless design.
But
they are the superior design.
But I already have that with the Nautilus 3700 and later the 5711 and the Royal Oak 5402 and later on the 15202 and 148020 and so on, 14808 too. All those references, they are direct descendants from the original, from the Royal Oak 5402, the first one, Nautilus 3700, first one. Already, if they do like a Royal Oak chronograph or a dual time or a Nautilus with a moon phase or a chronograph, that's so far off for me.
Yeah.
And even the Royal Oaks that are not the jumbo, so that have a seconds hand.
Yeah.
They are different, and then the design ratio is off. They
the
become
new
too
minis,
thick,
and now with the creme brulee dials and everything, it's
the Royal Oaks in 36. No, it's the 39. That's the original one, and the same for the Nautilus.
The original one is the superior
I have
design.
I have more difficulties with all those like a 41 Royal Oak with the seconds hand and a 37 one, a smaller one, or a 36, the older ones. I have more difficulties with that, to be honest, and it sounds weird, than with the current Code 1159, because there they came up with a new design. They embedded the mid case comes from Genta, which is fine. But at least, and also with the current models with the dials, they really improved it. It's a nice watch, and then at least you take some inspiration from the Genta design. And the other ones, they're just making that one Royal Oak in a gazillion different versions, and then you do so much concessions to the original design.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and at least the offshore is like putting it on
that's different
growth hormone and what have you. It's just a completely bulked up version.
Well, that's the thing, and I mean, in the end, if you look at it this way, you could say something like, the Beatles wrote some great music, but not all of the songs were Let It Be, and like they also have a few songs that when you listen to the full album, you sort of think, "Ooh, okay, I think I might skip that one." Maybe that's sacrilege to say that, but I think it's
That's
also fair to say.
That's the thing, right? We also see quite a bit of non-masterpieces being reissued and presented as masterpieces, but
bearing that Genta name or label.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I also thought of something that we saw recently, and I think it was through the LVMH thing. I think it was also through Gerald Genta, but it was these very jewelry looking watches, with this crown with the sort of beads around it. They were very square and angular. We'll put the picture up, but things like that, I also think, I mean, there might be a market for it out there, and if there is, good, perfect. But at the same time, it's
but it
a
also
little bit,
it also shows the current mood among in the world of watches with the audience is that people want something recognizable, something that they know, at least the name. There is not much.
I think
room
for a large part
futuristic
that applies.
designs, and I think brands are very are taking it very. They're afraid of moving too too fast forward too fast.
Well, and
the
you're also-
future is not that bright. So there was not a lot of
It isn't until it
futuristic
is in some way, but at the same time,
but
it's not that sort of space
the
age.
mood is not that
Yeah.
that bright.
Yeah, that's true. The general world mood. We're not
Yeah,
thinking
so-
that everybody's going to be living with perspex helmets, wearing silver suits in the perfect
So
utopian. Yeah, but at the same time, you're taking a chance when you design something like this below zero. You're taking a risk, and it's the same risk that Genta took back in the day when he was designing something like the Royal Oak, right? I mean, he was drawing those lines on a piece of paper and thinking, maybe
that
this
was
is
also
the next big thing, maybe it
the
isn't.
times were completely different. If you everything was futuristic. The future was great. We were going to flying cars. It was all that. It was and now we're
Now we have the
struggling with
Cybertruck.
how we're going to deal with AI. How we're going to deal with this. How we're going to survive this. How we're going to survive that. Are we going to be around in 10 years?
I think a lot of those, also in those days, a lot of car designs were a bit more outspoken, right?
Very outspoken, yeah.
With the Countach we mentioned yesterday. And
At
those
least-
kind of
at least-
designs,
man.
but also from Citroën and all those cars, they look so different from the cars today.
that's-
Today they all look more or less the same. If you look at a Lexus or
and
BMW
we all
or
and we
Mercedes,
all
it's
get very happy when then Lamborghini comes up with a concept model inspired by the former Countach. That's you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere.
But there's still that little bit of spark of madness that is so great. Like there's still designers out there that I mean, let's look at some examples recently. Like there's this Anoma watch that was recently released. That's a little bit Pebble inspired. It's this triangles within triangles, right? So it is also nice that. So here's kind of a good takeaway from this. The bright side is, sometimes going back to Genta can be a bit too much, but if it inspires a new generation of designers and a new generation of people that are a little bit more open-minded,
the spirit of Genta.
if it brings back or if it brings a newfound appreciation for design and things that are a little bit more outspoken and out there, that can only be a good thing. So looking at things like this Anoma watch that I mentioned, as well as slightly more traditional designs that are still taking it very seriously.
I thought the AP remaster too was, of course, it's also a remake or interpretation of a watch from way back then. But at least it brings an odd and a new kind of that's not an odd, a new kind of design, but it's something edgy. It definitely not for everyone.
Well, it's not a round watch.
It's not it's not the fuzzy retro feel you would expect, but it is it's more edgy, which is nice.
Seeing stuff like that and the Amida Digitrend, right, which is a bit like a casquette type of watch, and then things like there was another one from I forgot the that it looks like a little bit like a spaceship as well from Guillaume. I forgot Space One. Yeah, the Space One and the Tellurium, things like this, like
the affordable Uhrwerk.
Because if you want a Rolex Submariner or a Tudor Black Bay, it's there, and it's very watch that looks like a watch. Yeah, but if you want something that's a bit different and a little bit out there, it's great that there's anything from up at AP with a remaster down to something that's a little bit more affordable, or even something like the Arcan Ultram, right? Design that is a little bit off the beaten track. I think it's good. I think that the inspiration is good, but going back to Genta, it's also good to give it some time to maybe some of the stuff you find in the back of his archive of designs just
the man also just had to make a living, huh? He was when he was designing for brands, they also gave him pointers where we don't want this, we want that. So he was also just doing the job.
But I can see that now we're riding this Genta train for quite a while. It's quite a hype for quite some years. That there's no stopping, and that's a bit of the point to make. I think that people just feel the urge to bring out everything in the same kind of spirit as what Genta did, and I said no. You also you want to keep it special, right? Because if everyone is bulking out these Genta designs, then it's not special anymore.
That's the feeling, right? Like let Genta have a rest, let the designs have a rest, but find inspiration and do something a little different. I think that's the nice takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Hey, well, thanks guys for the discussion. Let's take a look.
What's your favorite Genta watch?
Royal Oak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll have to go with that actually.
Yeah, the Royal Oak.
Just a jumbo.
It's,
It's in gold,
Yeah.
not in steel.
In gold, not in steel.
Yeah, a few years ago they did the one in yellow gold, and it was really nice.
Yeah. I like that. I think it's. I don't know the reference or anything, but it's the one that has I think probably a perpetual calendar in gold, with a gold dial. I'll send Matthias the picture and he'll put it up on the screen. I think that's particularly. Every time I see it, I think, well, there's no point in thinking I'll ever have one, but whenever I see it, I do think. I make that Patrick Bateman American Psycho face. but yeah, perfect. Let's look at the comment of the week. De Commands, which comes from Nth1980, who says, "Learn something new every day. Love the Bolding Fuckle."
Yeah.
So thanks, Lex, for introducing the world to the
Gizzy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, the inverting consonants. Anyway, it's a peek into the inside jokes and twisted humor here at Fratello HQ. Okay. But yeah, as always, thank you for tuning in. Leave your comments down below and tune in next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.